Chapter 530. Zhang Yingying felt that today's boss was a bit too talkative, and he was too inhumane. She couldn't help but tug at the corner of her clothes. "Boss, you didn't pull him over to talk so much just to give him a blow, right? It's just a bit of the investor's grumbling. You can understand it as taking it out on him." Her Majesty Empress Wu tapped her palm with a scroll. She didn't hide her attitude at all. "You haven't seen those nerds in the lab. I said, I can take this out to make some money first. But they said, this isn't my direction. Don't disturb my research." "Who do you think I'm talking about?" "It's that bastard Ouyang Chen." Luo Nan believed that this was one of the most elegant expressions for bastard. However, the aftermath of the battle between the two extraordinaries made the listener feel rather embarrassed. As for Luo Nan, he was under even more pressure as a reserve bastard. Zhang Yingying glared at Luo Nan, meaning, "You owe me a beating." Then she turned to Her Majesty Empress Wu, replacing Luo Nan as a lackey. She blinked her starry eyes. Although a certain someone is young, he's not to that extent. He's still very motivated. "Look, boss. He's so obedient. He's certainly very obedient. Of course, he's a bit stupid. He might not understand things that are too profound. If you have any requests, if you have any opinions, just say it. Just say it." She was beating drums, making hand gestures, and winking eyes. Luo Nan would be done for if he didn't keep up. From his perspective, Her Majesty Empress Wu was the apex figure of the world. It was not shameful to receive guidance and education from her. Luo Nan took a deep breath and really did ask for guidance obediently. "I hope Your Majesty can give me some pointers." "That's fine." Her Majesty Empress Wu gave a smile that wasn't a smile. "We're done talking about status and value. Let's talk about advantages. Where do you think your advantages lie?" Relative to me." Luo Nan nearly choked to death from this precondition. Zhang Yingying and Qin Yikuan both had expressions that they couldn't bear to watch. However, Her Majesty Empress Wu's gaze was very serious. Luo Nan hesitated for a long time, but he could only grit his teeth and speak. "I can't estimate the level of your abilities. However, I think it's possible that in terms of perspective." Her Majesty Empress Wu actually nodded in approval. "Your pure observation ability is indeed unrivaled in the universe." Such a conclusion caused Luo Nan's mind to shake. This was the evaluation of an extraordinary. Not only that, Her Majesty Empress Wu appraised him a step further. "To be able to think of this, you aren't completely stupid. Standing on the framework of formatting theory, you should be able to see more things than anyone else on this planet, including extraordinaries. There is no one who doesn't want to obtain these abilities." Qin Yikuan and Zhang Yingying looked at each other. However, Her Majesty Empress Wu changed the topic. "But with your current theoretical foundation, if you were to explain those phenomena and the true meaning behind them, and impart cultivation methods, it would definitely be a disaster. After all, you're just a result, not a process. If you were to promote your experience now, any investor would go bankrupt. In the end, formatting theory is still a laboratory product. It revealed some truths and destroyed the classical paradigm, but it did not build a new system from the ruins. You don't even know if such a system exists in the universe." Luo Nan felt that the meaning at the end of Her Majesty Empress Wu's words was a bit vague. It was a bit hard to understand. But before he could analyze it in depth, Her Majesty Empress Wu had already cut into the plane of reality. In terms of practical application, people nowadays don't need anything particularly essential. Even if they were given it, they wouldn't be able to touch it. Actually, you just need to describe a portion of the scene you see. For cultivators, for researchers, and for the social system of this planet, there is considerable value in providing a true perspective. When the vast majority of people in this world are blind, a guide dog is a priceless treasure." Zhang Yingying couldn't help but spit out a laugh. She managed to control the latter half of her laughter with great difficulty, but her pretty face was strangely stifled. Qin Yikuan substituted himself in from a different angle. He lowered his head to look at his own hands. He didn't feel like he was blind at all. Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed at first, but he suddenly felt that he seemed to have heard similar words somewhere before. Of course, it wasn't in this style. He combed through the information in his mind and subconsciously said, "Poor deities know how to transform. Virtue matches the heavens? You still want to match the heavens with virtue? You can't do it right now. Your train of thought is far from being systematic. There is merit, but it's enough to cover the costs and expenses. Luo Nan understood. He really did understand. Isn't it just asking me to open a class? You old man actually went around in such a big circle. But he was convinced from the bottom of his heart. I understand what you mean. I'll go back and discuss it with worker Zhai and prepare a lesson plan. It's fine to limit it to the angle of the dripping sword. If you expand it too much, you'll directly bring them into a pit. Then I'll prepare a lesson plan and ask you to check it out. Having said this, Luo Nan couldn't help but ask, can I increase the value of my investment by opening a class? You're thinking too much. If you want to rely on education to make money, then your heart isn't black. Your ass is crooked. But education is indeed the foundation of many industries. As an investor, I have to offset the risks. I can accept losing money here and earning money there. Speaking of which, how's your history? Luo Nan couldn't keep up with the sudden jump. He could only speak the truth. Yes, it's very average. You should have some common sense. There was a very famous fellow in ancient times called Xiang Yu. When he was young, he had a very famous saying about education. It was something like, 10,000 enemies. Luo Nan laughed awkwardly. I know this illusion, but the specific content. Books are enough to record names. The sword is not enough to learn. 10,000 enemies is enough to learn. Her Majesty Empress Wu recited slowly, acting as if no one else was present. Luo Nan didn't understand. Luckily, Her Majesty Empress Wu explained, the times are very different now. The sword isn't necessarily only a single enemy. Take that fellow Jin Tong for example. It's nothing for him to kill tens of thousands of people. But in essence, he is still a single enemy. A true 10,000 enemies is a system of knowledge grasped by people in the process of social development. Politics, military strategy, science and technology. On this foundation, slaughtering millions of people doesn't count for anything. Even the entire planet will be covered by this system. If you want to use formatting theory to cultivate 10,000 enemies, then you'll be on Jin Tong's level at best. But I believe that with the framework of formatting theory, you can completely become a single enemy. There isn't a single true result in this world right now, but I believe that formatting theory possesses the potential and value. And this is precisely the reason why I agreed to invest and continue to invest. In order to curry favor with investors, you should at least put on a show first. Luo Nan subconsciously glanced at Zhang Yingying. Zhang Yingying grinned and made a face. Luo Nan couldn't help but ridicule in his mind. This type of investor seemed very terrifying. Her Majesty Empress Wu continued to speak. The art of war says, soldiers. Through 5 things. Study through schemes, and search for emotions. The first is the Tao. The second is the heaven. The third is the earth. The fourth is the general. The fifth is the law. If we look into it in detail, it's nothing more than one's own resources, the external environment, the calculation of intelligence, and laws and regulations. For you, laws and regulations are fixed and unchanging. If you want to verify their value, you will need to see how you use other factors. There's no harm in spreading the plate a bit larger. That way, you won't have the regret of killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. This is a painting, a thesis, and also a research report. I hope you can sell it for a good price. Luo Nan was a bit stupefied at first, but he understood the meaning of these words 2 seconds later. This was the true guidance of Her Majesty Empress Wu. There were more and more people in the art museum right now. It looked like everyone was doing their utmost to appreciate the exhibits within the museum. They were racking their brains to find their value. However, everyone knew that the most valuable part was the radio waves that traveled inside and outside the art museum. Compared to the mainstream, Luo Nan's group of 4 was moving slowly, but their speed was still a bit faster. They had already reached the innermost part of the art museum, and they began their return journey along the winding corridor. Her Majesty Empress Wu was the first to turn around. She tapped Luo Nan's shoulder with her scroll. You're able to listen to my nagging, and you're able to listen. You have a future, kid. Luo Nan looked at this young literary woman who seemed to be in her 20s. She spoke in such an old-fashioned manner, and Luo Nan felt very subtle. If you think I'm a moldable talent, then add back my honor points. Her Majesty Empress Wu seemed to have seen through Luo Nan's thoughts. If your honor points are deducted, then they're deducted. There's no way to add them back. In any case, you still have a certain amount of credit. I'll just sign the bill for you. However, I can make up for it in other aspects. Luo Nan, Zhang Yingying, and Qi Nikuan focused their gazes on her. They wanted to see what sort of treasure the Almighty Extraordinary would bring out. Her Majesty Empress Wu just gripped her scroll. She walked forward as if she were taking a leisurely stroll. There's a rather special situation in today's art exhibition. The organizer and the person involved are quite sincere. They didn't simply set up a stall and wait for people to fork out money. Instead, they personally came to the venue. Oh, it's those people. A small group of people were chatting in a corner of the art museum. Several brawny men in black suits were scattered around them, separating this area from the flow of people in the art museum. Her Majesty Empress Wu turned a blind eye to them. She led Luo Nan and the others over in a leisurely manner. A few men in black suits discovered them. They subconsciously wanted to extend their hands to stop them, but their bodies inexplicably went rigid. Even their facial expressions froze. There were two ability users who far surpassed ordinary people within the group of bodyguards. They wanted to make a move after discovering something strange, but the first thing they saw when they turned their heads was Her Majesty Empress Wu, who was holding a scroll and smiling. This time, even their thoughts froze. Her Majesty Empress Wu walked all the way to the side of the small group of people. Only now did the people in conversation feel that something was wrong. They all looked over in astonishment. Some people even subconsciously asked, "You are?" Her Majesty Empress Wu didn't engage in conversation with these people at all. She just said to Luo Nan, "Remember these faces. If you're not confident in your memory, you can take pictures. If you suffer a loss later and are in a bad mood, just choose one of them. Or you can slaughter them all. You won't go wrong." Her words caused everyone's expressions to change. But at this time, a few people among them clearly saw the faces of Her Majesty Empress Wu and Luo Nan. The blood drained from their faces. How could Luo Nan not know that these people here were the capital spokespersons who hunted for food in Xia City, as well as the bureaucrats who attempted to cooperate with them? He looked around, and the Hexaears database automatically matched them. A certain number of members of Congress, a certain number of upper echelons of companies, a certain number of famous brokers. Her Majesty Empress Wu said unhurriedly, "The vast majority of investors in the world should remember one thing. The largest investment should be placed on oneself. Though it's very likely to be inefficient, one shouldn't be a disgusting slug after the outer shell of capital and power is peeled away." Luo Nan faced these slugs, and his mood was unexpectedly calm. In the end, he just smiled and bowed. Luo Nan had discovered this warped structure back then, and he named his human-faced arachnid accordingly. This was the origin of the Wraith sign. Luo Nan scanned it once. What was the meaning of hanging up my believers? What was even stranger was that this mist symbol that symbolized the Wraith sign didn't directly revolve around the virtual brain. Instead, it hung on the outside of the exoskeleton, which looked very cool, but its volume didn't quite conform to reality. It was like a satellite of a satellite. Luo Nan felt this was strange, but soon, another image appeared on the outer edge of the Wraith sign. This image was a size smaller than the mist that the Wraith sign had projected. It was like the projection of a mountain, with dangerous cliffs and jagged teeth. It was quite sinister. This toy was even easier to distinguish. Blood Soul Temple. The starry sky interface grew richer and richer. Two more images appeared soon after, appearing on the outskirts of the Blood Soul Temple. This time, they were clearer, and they were very familiar. One of them was a vicious ape with long arms and a rotten mouth. This was Yuan Air. The other was like a normal person, covered in shadows. This was Mo Luan. They were both puppets manufactured by the Blood Soul Temple. Oh, there was another one. It stood side by side with Yuan Air and Mo Luan. This time, it was a mass of dazzling electricity. It seemed to warp and transform under the pull of magnetism. It had no fixed form. With the previous elements as a guide, Luo Nan quickly confirmed that this mass of electricity should be the projection of Jin Tong's soul light seed. Now, all three puppets were alive. And they were a size smaller than the image of the Blood Soul Temple. They were like small satellites that revolved around the Blood Soul Temple. On the next level, the Blood Soul Temple revolved around the Wraith Sign. The Wraith Sign revolved around the exoskeleton. Finally, the exoskeleton revolved around the virtual brain. In this way, a strange celestial body system was formed with layers upon layers. And so, Luo Nan knew that this should be an abnormal tree diagram based on the relationship between father and son. Not to mention anything else, the Wraith Sign system was displayed. But what sort of standard was this? Scanning the believers? The incorporeal fluctuations of the external neuron scan seemed to cut through cat eyes and the others, but not a trace of feedback came back. And why was it mounted as a sublayer of the exoskeleton? Could it be that it wanted him to equip it? The new 3 layers and 5 images appeared. The tragic thing was that they were still in an unreadable state, but there were differences. The Wraith Sign was completely the same dark gray color as the flying ship and the exoskeleton. There was no movement whatsoever. But the Blood Soul Temple on its sublayer was already faintly colored. Chapter 533. This mountain of bones isn't that strong to begin with. However, Jin Tong fought a great battle up there. His electrode golden body. I just randomly came up with this name. But his ability to use his metallized body to guide powerful electromagnetic fields is quite decent. It's precisely because of the ionization and electrolysis effects of high-voltage electricity that a large amount of bones were crushed and then glued back together. It's tantamount to refining and remodeling. What was originally a pile of broken bones has gone up in strength, and most of them have fused together. They won't break so easily. I can take them back and use them as souvenirs. I can sell them for 1,000,000 or 800,000. A white-haired old man was laughing and laughing as he analyzed the ruins left behind after the great battle in the seas outside Xia City on the inner world's famous professional review program, Physiognomy. That's right. Half of the credit for creating this mountain of bones belongs to Jin Tong. But the structure of the mountain's terrain and laws should have nothing to do with him. He doesn't have this artistic sense. Plus, I feel that I should have seen a similar design a long time ago. That's right. That's right. It possesses the elements of the inner world. It has appeared before, but there hasn't been any trace of it for a long time. I've almost forgotten about it. Besides, you shouldn't be asking me this question. The gorgeous host's exaggerated expression of astonishment could be translated as, Motherf ****. Did we find a scammer to cheat us out of our appearance fees? Of course, this was just a misconception caused by the host's lack of skill. In reality, when the program Physiognomy spent a lot of money to invite this white-haired old man, the veteran extraordinary Ghost Eye Che-E, to participate in the program, the inner world's viewership ratings reached a terrifying 77% during last night's primetime slot. This kind of data meant that, aside from a portion of people who wandered the wilderness and didn't have the ability to watch, practically 99% of the inner world's members were watching and studying this program. Luo Nan, who had been diligently preparing for his lessons last night, became the 1% who didn't fit in with the group. So much so that when he ran this morning, he had to make up for his lessons and watch the broadcast. This white-haired old man with a gloomy name was famous in the inner world for being a disrespectful old man. He once used his X-ray vision ability to wreak havoc for a time, making countless enemies. But he was still able to live safely and steadily until now. From this, one could see how powerful his abilities were. At this moment, Che-E was smiling so widely that his eyes had turned into slits. This was most likely because of the beautiful MC he was partnered with. Only God knew what he saw in his eyes. I heard that the entire design and decoration was done bit by director Wan and the children. It's simple and warm. It's really pleasing to the eye and has a lot of style. Then did you know that your sudden arrival caused chaos in the orphanage and also forced Rue to cross a distance of 60 kilometers to flash back and act cute? Luo Nan buried his head in his kanji, cursing endlessly in his mind. Also, he actually thought that Rue was very cute. Was this a sign that they were fated? In addition to praising Rue Wen and the environment of the orphanage, Emoya also had a good impression of Dean Wan Ta. That Dean Wan is also quite charming. He is a very dedicated and warm man. I heard that he used to be a traveler, but after he gained some enlightenment in the wilderness, He came back to do charity. He's a very down-to-earth person. Is that so? Sounds good. Although Mrs. Luo Shuqing always had a lot of opinions about Mo Ya's sloppiness, she also attached great importance to Mo Ya's insight and evaluation. She viewed them as an important reference. From this point of view, perhaps her aunt firmly believed that her eldest daughter was the one who truly inherited her innate bloodline? According to Mo Ya's words, she slightly revised her train of thought. How about we bring Rue Wen out for a meal today? The whole family will go and find a nearby restaurant. 2 people will go to the orphanage and bring Rue Wen out. I'm afraid that too many people will disturb the other children. Luo Nen felt admiration in his heart. Empress Dowager, you've really thought things through thoroughly. However, Mrs. Luo Shuqing proved that she had thought things through more than he imagined in the next moment. All right. I'm going to contact worker Zhai. Huh. The child he's sponsoring is called Di Wei Wu. He's with Rue Wen. There's no harm in inviting them over. With these children together, it's the same as having a small party. It's not too restrictive. Unfortunately, time is too tight. Otherwise, the effect would be better at home. Luo Nan blinked his eyes. You really are thinking too much. Mo Peng had just defeated the Sandman, so he came to his senses now. He appeared very surprised. You're saying that I'm going to this party? You're voluntarily withdrawing from this family group. Of course not. I'm saying that the low-altitude public transport is too slow. I won't be able to make it in time for dinner. Who's going to pick me up after school? Mo Haihang spoke calmly from the main seat. Let your mom make a detour. As compensation, I'll send Luo Nan off today. This kind of fairness is really shameful. Mo Peng was like a dog in grief and indignation, but he could only swallow the bone his parents threw at him. Luo Nan turned his gaze in slight astonishment. Mo Haiheng lowered his head to look at the flashing news information on his desk once more. It was as if those words just now were the most simple and last-minute decision. 15 minutes later, Luo Nan sat in his uncle's family SUV. At the same time, he mentally prepared himself to face the interrogation once more. With this mentality, the gaze he cast at the driver's seat was actually quite bitter. You didn't do any proper work in class yesterday, did you? Looking up information and data wasn't a big deal. Finding false information wasn't a problem either. But that was all bought with points. Luo Nan really felt tired from dealing with such a scheming elder. But unexpectedly, his uncle continued the topic of Rue Wen on the road. He probed more into Rue Wen's temperament, mental state, and other elements. These were the things Luo Nan had been mulling over all this time. It was inevitable that he would say a few more words. He would discuss how to better integrate Rue Wen into the world of normal people. With that, he could not help but relax. He took the opportunity to use his half-baked, strategic planning technique to simulate a parallel mission. Aside from the conversation, he could also look at the virtual brain app. Though Jean Tong didn't have any more vengeful souls after breakfast, its Soul Light Seed's analysis progress was still at the forefront. It had already broken through the 60% threshold. There really was nothing that could stop it from advancing like a hurricane. Luo Nan felt a bit uneasy about this kind of bug-level analysis progress, but he was looking forward to it even more. Perhaps after this analysis was completed, he would be able to have a more intuitive understanding of the core of the virtual brain app. Looking at the interface of the app too much really made him irritated. His thoughts swept across the starry sky interface, and he would make new discoveries from time to time. He was certain that there were many functions hidden within this interactive interface. But correspondingly, there would be undecipherable characters. Even though they all belonged to the same hieroglyphic system, even though many of them looked familiar, Luo Nan was unable to decipher them no matter how hard he tried. Interaction was impossible, and the functions were limited. Luo Nan couldn't operate a single one of them. So it was said that characters were the natural moat. The obstruction of characters was the division between civilizations. Luo Nan couldn't help but think. Could it be that an inconceivable civilization truly existed behind the external neuron? Like aliens? Perhaps those undecipherable hieroglyphic characters were the carriers of an alien civilization? Similar thoughts had appeared more than once, but it was hard to form a conclusion. Luo Nan nearly believed that the road to school was going to pass amidst family conversations and meaningless fantasies. Then he suddenly heard a sentence, Your search index is very high right now. Huh. Luo Nan's head went numb the instant his uncle's words entered his ears. He immediately raised the priority of the conversation mission to the highest level. But it was of no use. What are you talking about? Mo Haiheng switched topics with ease, and he struck right at the pit of Luo Nan's stomach. Yesterday, I asked a friend at headquarters to do a rough understanding. I can't calculate the specific details, and we don't have that much authority. But if we just consider the search volume and relevance of information related to you from the inner world for the past 2 months, your ranking is quite high. I'm talking about excluding the local information of Xia City. We only calculate the feedback from other regions to Xia City, including Quantum Corporation and some other sensitive enterprises. Of all the SCA members in the Xia City branch, your search index is ranked second. You are second only to a powerful person nicknamed Her Majesty Empress Wu. But starting from last Saturday, the relevant data suddenly fell below the average line. A statistical difference has appeared. Is it because the urgent situation has attracted everyone's attention? Or is there some other factor interfering? Luo Nan was able to maintain a normal expression right now. This was the limit of what he could do. But what was the point? Mo Haiheng turned his gaze to meet Luo Nan's gaze. I feel like you're doing quite well over there. Are you a celebrity member? All right. Luo Nan admitted that his brain was muddled. His planning technique was directly broken. He went in a few circles before he had a rough idea of what was going on. It couldn't be said that the Xia City branch's intelligence work wasn't diligent. If his uncle only understood from the local area of Xia City and went to a separate organization to understand, there would certainly be no flaws. But this old man just bypassed all of this. He set his hand on the flow of information and made deductions. This really couldn't be covered up. The only way was to completely erase all the incoming and outgoing information. But how was that possible? Could Xia City be erased? What about the entire inner world? The inner world could be erased, but what about Quantum Corporation? Luo Nan's thoughts were too naive. Could he get a refund now? His uncle didn't have any intentions of continuing to pursue the matter. Instead, he was laughing. He was really laughing, without any other emotions mixed in. You people of the Luo family are all like this. It's like you can gather the gazes of others no matter where you go. From the wilderness to the city, you're all like this. It's just that Shu Qing is a bit more low-key. Luo Nan mumbled, unable to speak. We should celebrate. You're able to continue the path of your grandfather and your parents. I've always admired them. I once wanted to participate, but in the end, I wasn't able to enter the door. At most, I was at the level of an archivist. Wasn't there news that the voices of dissent within the Xia City branch were quite loud? If we can cook the frog in warm water and create conflict between them, or even turn them into enemies, it will save us a lot of trouble. In such a favorable situation, someone raised an objection. But this will slow down the pace. Very quickly, the objection was rebutted. Slowing down the pace is more advantageous for us. Xia City is just a mere branch. Even if they have 2 extraordinaries and a bunch of unreliable allies, they will grind them to death sooner or later if they really wanted to go against the entire world. This was almost everyone's consensus, and it was politically correct. It was unknown which idiot broke a piece of paper. The problem is that the alliance outside might not be reliable. There was a sudden silence in the cabin. Not even the sound of breathing could be heard. Fortunately, there was someone who laughed in time. I originally thought it would be a short trip. If we really were to float in the freezing rain for 10 days to half a month, my D*CK would shrink a little. When I go back to shore and find some fun, that would be a real misery. The group of observers roared with laughter. The idiot who just made a slip of the tongue laughed especially loudly. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to dispel the awkwardness between everyone. There was also someone who continued with a senseless joke. Be content. The cabin is clearly so hot it's like a bird's nest puddles. Ha! The person who spoke wanted to ask, who raised the temperature so high? But then he saw a human silhouette appear on the cabin wall directly in front of him. It was like a strange relief sculpture that suddenly appeared before his eyes. Moreover, this relief sculpture was alive. In the blink of an eye, it stepped inside. It was as if the metallic wall was nothing but a laughable illusion. The temperature within the cabin rose by a large margin. It rose by more than 20 to 30 degrees in an instant. Everyone felt a scorching heat wave assault their faces. It didn't matter if it was an illusion or not. Such a scene couldn't possibly be a joke. Enemy attack. At least half of the people in the cabin jumped up. Although they were observers sitting in the office, they were all above average ability users. At a time like this, the equipment all over the cabin was useless. They had to rely on themselves. Some people fell under the table at the first moment to hide, and through their own channels, they sent out warnings and distress messages. There were also full-time combat and security personnel on the ship, but until now, they hadn't done a good job of security. No matter who was in the cabin, there was an unsolvable doubt in their hearts. Who was the attacker? How did he board the ship? After a short half a second, all doubts became meaningless. The first person to discover it, and also the person who jumped the earliest, suddenly withered. Pretending to be intimate, they exchanged a few vulgarities and bumped fists. The two of them sat on opposite sides of the table and entered into transaction mode. Unlike Johnny, who was an outer member of the society, Ironbox was a member of the Xia City branch's action team. He was a core force that the society put more effort into nurturing. Therefore, they had a natural advantage in obtaining information. In the past, the Xia City branch was in a state of leaking on all sides. People like Metalbox had at least opened a window. Because of this, when faced with the gradual tightening of internal discipline, this brother was also full of complaints. We really can't F*King survive now. We're purely blast walls, facing the nuclear explosion head-on, and then dying a worthless death. I must leave this place as soon as possible. That's why I'm in need of money and travel expenses. Johnny chuckled. For the sake of our many years of cooperation, I'm willing to raise more money for you. But for the final project, we have to find a highlight or explosive point. F*CKU. Maybe I should put some juicy meatballs in your mouth. Because of your terrible attitude, the prices of goods in Xia City have increased by a notch. Both sides used intimate and ferocious attitudes to carry out a close exchange. 15 minutes later, they finally reached an agreement with great difficulty. Ironbox once again raised his travel expenses, and Johnny obtained relevant information about a certain orphanage as well as the predetermined plans of the Xia City branch's action team for the next few days. Ironbox didn't care if the price was satisfactory or not. He walked down with a dark face as per usual. Johnny wouldn't tell him that this was the origin of the black box. What? You're talking about black box operations? At their level, they weren't worthy. But soon, Johnny lost the mood to tease Ironbox. In these 15 minutes, Baze ruined at least 2 points worth of good wine in front of the bar on the first floor of the cave. He smoothly knocked away half of Johnny's earnings, and he even continued to do so. This time, not only Johnny's eyelids twitched, even his eyebrows and apple cheeks were twitching. But he really didn't have the guts to clash with this famous muscle man of Xia City. Yes, this was the most fundamental reason. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve Johnny. He left his seat with a taut face and returned to his private room in the next floor of the cave. There was a time limit for the information. He had to make them pay as soon as possible. But not long after he returned to his room, the lobby manager made a phone call before he could even log into the dark web. Actually, there was no need. The cave Johnny resided in was already shaking. He only heard a worthless report. Baze stopped Ironbox and splashed him in the face. Then they started fighting. F*CK this black dog. Johnny finally couldn't help but curse. The problem was that it was meaningless. The worst thing was that the situation in the first floor of the cave quickly went out of control. For the first 30 seconds, the sissy could still cry to him about the loss of assets and casualties. But after a deafening explosion, there was no more sound from the other side. Johnny immediately made a call to the security captain of the Wild Inn. But the news he obtained made his blood boil and his vision darken. The security team he paid millions of dollars in salary every month was practically all dead. As for the two leading figures he invited to watch the scene, they didn't even have the time to exchange blows with the Oblatum Knight blessed by the priestess before they were drowned in the indescribably excited crowd of guests and drinkers. Right now, There was already a chaotic battle downstairs. Most of the people came for one purpose, but there were too many monks and not enough gruel. What 2,000 or 16 billion? They never said that they could split it evenly. Perhaps many people had the mentality of, the big shots eat the meat, and we drink the soup. But wouldn't it be better if there were fewer people drinking the soup? Hidden competition and suppression were always present, and the corresponding hostility and hatred were also accumulating layer by layer. With a big target, these gunpowder could still be controlled. They were temporarily stacked in everyone's hearts, but the premise was that they did not go off by accident. Johnny's scalp was about to explode. If the chaos continued, the accumulated gunpowder would completely explode. Even if this wilding could still be preserved, it would soon welcome its 8th boss. Every time this happened, the previous boss would always end up in a bad situation. He began to make frantic calls to various investors, as well as to the real big shots in the vicinity. The military had shares here, and they would occasionally receive some filial piety. Not to mention anything else, as long as they sent a small team, even if it was just for show. With a muffled bang, the floor clearly shook, and Johnny almost bounced up. He turned his head in shock and saw that the floor, which was compacted with red earth and reinforced with steel bars, had been forcibly pierced through. Half of the body of the metal box, who had just completed the transaction with Johnny, drilled out of the hole. His head was flat and deformed, and it looked like his spine was already broken. One of his eyeballs had exploded out of his eye socket, and the remaining eye still had a dark red bloody hole. The metal box blankly looked forward, meeting Johnny's gaze head-on. The hair on Johnny's thighs stood on end when he faced this scene. Then right after, the door with 3 layers of protection was kicked open. Baze, who was still clutching a bottle of blood energy, grinned as he staggered through the door. However, someone soon interrupted the meal process. Before, I only knew that you were a 3rd-generation researcher. Yeah, you're the 3rd generation of a family of researchers. But could it be that you're also a hidden aristocrat of a secret order? Have the Blood Flame Order and the Order of Justice already crawled beneath your feet? Zhang Yingying's mouth expressed her emotions without restraint, and Luo Nan didn't need to do anything. He just had a wooden expression, and this was more than enough. He slapped Shui Lei's arm heavily. You're too good. Zhang Yingying sneered. Luo Nan suddenly felt something strange a few seconds later. He scanned his group of friends and saw that the move Shui Lei had just taught him was being replayed in the group. Below was a string of people pounding the ground while laughing wildly. There were people joining in endlessly. The formation was neat. Bamboo Pole, the cynical man with a high IQ, was the last to speak. I've just written a small automatic analysis program. You can just download it from the group. It works wonders with the Hexa ear. We can see how many similar keywords and key sentences Professor Luo will say in one lecture. A bunch of people applauded and praised. The 10-second man truly lives up to his name. Luo Nan had a mental breakdown. Zhang Yingying, what the hell are you doing? Zhang Yingying giggled and waved her hand. There's only one thing I'm trying to say. Communicate well with worker Zhai and do your teaching plan seriously. Don't think too much about it. Everyone has their own specialties. At present, you'll have a better future as a lecturer and swipe credit cards for everyone. The conversation ended. Luo Nan sat on a chair and let out a long breath. There was something he really wanted to say, but in the end, he kept it in his stomach. Did a certain someone misunderstand Her Majesty Empress Wu's intentions? Shui Lei was very confused. What does swiping credit cards mean? Cat Eyes giggled as she answered. Basically, the boss is currently providing remuneration for around half of the Xia City branch members. You can look at his credit card bill for the specifics. Luo Nan's lips twitched. He was too lazy to respond. At the same time, he knew that what Cat Eyes said was more or less the standard answer. Zhang Yingying's intentions were very simple. It didn't matter if Luo Nan wanted to become a one-man enemy or a 10,000 enemy. With his current strength, he still needed to carry out relevant designs within the framework of the Xia City branch. He proposed ideas and paid remuneration. The Xia City branch was responsible for carrying them out, as long as his credit didn't go bankrupt. This seemed to be in line with Her Majesty Empress Wu's train of thought, but Luo Nan really wanted to say, formatting theory and the Xia City branch's operating model are ultimately different. What Her Majesty Empress Wu wanted to see most likely wasn't how Luo Nan would play around under the latter's constraints. She wanted to see how Luo Nan would come up with a more novel and valuable framework system. Right now, Luo Nan needed to ponder over what he could bring out for others to see, and what he could hide. Of course, this was not an easy task. Hey Nanster, your face is too red, right? Xue Lei discovered a new situation. Oh, it's nothing. Luo Nan subconsciously touched his face as he spoke. It really was a bit hot. You didn't feel anything at all before. That's right, the results were plentiful. It was easy to talk about, but one had to actually put it into action. In the hearts of tens of thousands of people, including the hearts of the powerful individuals whose strength was above Luo Nan's, the invisible poisonous threads were absolutely not an easy task. The Wraith sign was able to do this because Luo Nan was forced to do it. Luo Nan was able to point out a direction because he was forced by the environment. He couldn't be considered to be a particularly intelligent person, but the terrible environment forced him to think. He pondered over whether or not there was a consistent clue amidst the waves of unrest. Was there a core that he could grasp? He thought to himself at first. Rue 1 was Miss 2000s. She appeared to be the core pursuit of all actions. He and his relatives were merely a stepping stone to realizing this pursuit. But upon closer examination, could Rue 1 be the ultimate pursuit of those people? Clearly not. Those people had captured Rue 1, and they wanted to exchange her for the legendary 16 billion or 2000s. They wanted to use her as a stepping stone to seek an even higher level of benefit and authority. And so, one level after another, one step after another. There was no end to it. And at the end of the boundless stairway to heaven, there was a faintly discernible silhouette projection. It was nothing more than the word, benefit. Luo Nan didn't dare to say that he had seen through something, but he was indeed forced to come to a realization. All powers, all powerful enemies, from beginning to end, were nothing more than people who pursued benefit. It was said, the world is bustling with activity, all for benefit. The world is bustling with activity, all for benefit. It was hard to differentiate. Reality proved that the core of the clue Luo Nan grasped was not misplaced. The human-faced arachnid possessed terrifying instincts. It had infiltrated its way down through this channel, eroding the hearts of people. It was successful in every endeavor. With the fetters of benefit, the incorporeal spider silk was able to form firm reins. From this, it formed an enormous spider web that covered the entirety of Xia City. It pierced into the hearts of tens of thousands of people, endlessly expanding. The area covered by the spider web was the location of the law of the altar. The people of the world sought benefit, and the altar gave it to them. This wasn't an incorporeal benefit. It wasn't a petty benefit. Instead, it was a great benefit that truly pointed straight to the core of life. It was the highest level of benefit that Luo Nan could give. Luo Nan's eyes widened slightly. The vast void that his mind touched was covered with layer upon layer of spider webs. They reached up to the heavens and down to the earth, connecting to the hearts of people. Pure life force flowed within this complex web that was indistinguishable from reality. Chapter 539. Finally, they finished their lunch with much difficulty. After the meal, Qin Ikuan and Gao De went to arrange the security team's shifts. Cat Eyes began to fulfill her babysitting duties. She tried to get Rue 1, who was used to being cold and aloof, to integrate into the large group as soon as possible. Xue Lei originally had something he wanted to discuss with Luo Nan, but Worker Zhai called at this time to discuss matters regarding tonight's gathering. Everything else was fine, but Di Weiwu had the temperament of a child. Some things slipped out of his mouth. Even if everyone had a tacit understanding, it would still be a bit awkward. Worker Zhai and Luo Nan set up a few topics in advance. When the time came, they would do their best to lead in that direction. After talking for a while, they naturally entered the domain of the class and discussion on the night of the 14th. In any case, Worker Zhai was a guest teacher of a large society of Acumen College. He had plenty of experience in training and teaching. He saw that Luo Nan was a bit scared, so he gave Luo Nan an idea. I'll write down my thoughts first. Later on, we can discuss seriously based on this draft. Let's see if there are any areas that are more meaningful or controversial. We can use this to extend the main points and outline of your class. Actually, this is exactly the same as tonight. I'll be the assistant. You'll be the main speaker. I'll guide. You expound. We'll work together to fool. Luo Nan expressed his thanks again and again. He made a preliminary appointment with worker Zhai. They would meet on Wednesday, which was the night of the 12th. They would pull an all-nighter and finish all the teaching materials. They would set aside a day for Her Majesty Empress Wu to review it. Then they would go to the execution grounds. No, to the lectern. The call ended, and Luo Nan got up and stretched his back. He habitually performed 2 stretching motions. After Gym Master Xiao's training, Luo Nan was able to perform similar motions in a professional manner. As his limbs moved, his entire body's joints, muscles, bones, skin, and so on contracted and relaxed. His blood energy rose and fell, so much so that he could hear the gurgling sound of blood flowing. This had nothing to do with guiding. In a second or two, Luo Nan's cheeks, neck, and even his shoulders and back, which were covered by his clothes, were covered with a layer of bright red light. The surface temperature of his body rose a bit, and he even felt a bit swollen. Fortunately, he discovered it early this time. When he closed his eyes, the divine wheel and body wheel were coupled together. His internal organs, tendons, bones, meridians, and acupoints interacted with each other. Yin and yang rose and fell. This sudden surge of vital energy circulated and spread to his limbs and bones to strengthen his foundation. Sigh. Xue Lei opened his mouth, but then cut it off. He felt a little awkward, as though he was crying wolf. This was already the second time he had seen Luo Nan's face turn red. But this time, it dissipated even faster. It nearly made him think that it was an illusion. Are you blushing again? Luo Nan knew that Xue Lei was worried. He simply gave Xue Lei a vague explanation. Maybe it's because I've been trying to couple my body and soul to a deep level for the past 2 days. But now that I'm awake, I feel like I'm improving very quickly. On the other side, Cat Eyes was sitting next to Rue Wan. Wan Yen shot a glance over and sneered silently. Luo Nan's skin was getting thicker and thicker now. He turned a blind eye. Actually, this current phenomenon was due to the problem that Cat Eyes had just pointed out. The stall was too large. The altar frame needed to be erected, and Luo Nan needed to bear enormous pressure. But he really did use his identity as the provider and defender of the frame order to enjoy transcendental privileges. Due to the existence of the rule of winner takes all, the altar frame system allowed people to die and their life force to be stripped away. This portion of energy could not be extracted. Instead, it would continue to be assimilated into the frame, stimulating and strengthening all the surviving participants. Everyone was treated equally. But the problem was that when people entered the altar frame, it was like entering a casino. Of course, there was the possibility of profit, but they would also have to pay service fees and administrative fees for this possibility of falling from the sky. Plus, Luo Nan's own closed system was interspersed within. A considerable portion of the hidden benefits seeped through the drip irrigation. Little by little, they accumulated. The Wraith sign didn't seem to care much about all of these benefits. He just helped the Blood Soul Temple devour a bit, realizing replenishment. The rest went through the large production line of the closed system, undergoing purification and assimilation into Luo Nan's boundlessly vast God Gear icy ocean. A portion was offered to the Soul Cloak that continued to expand, and the rest was coupled to drive the body gear to revolve. The gear set of the God Gear and body gear seemed to have been added with maintenance fluids and lubricants. It was also like a layer of furnace fire was wrapped around it, nourishing and tempering it without end. This was the part that Luo Nan told Xue Lei. The 9 orifices and 6 roots pattern ensured the efficiency of absorption and the direction of advancement. Gym Master Xiao once modestly said that there was nothing more he could teach Luo Nan. But the basic pattern he helped Luo Nan establish was one of the most important links in this virtuous cycle. This brought about a change in Luo Nan's root receptacle, a positive change in quantity, and even a change in quality. The Gym Master's suggestion is certainly correct from a practical point of view. God was the strongest of the several burners in the security team. His strength was roughly C after undergoing transformation. But with Xue Lei's current abilities, he would be able to win if he were to fight God barehanded, even if God had an advantage in combat experience. After all, Xue Lei's close combat ability had already broken through the limits of ordinary people under Gym Master Xiao's tutelage. He didn't dare speak of his architect rank, but he had definitely reached the C+ level. It was the highest level among awakened. But if God were to wear the deep blue walker exoskeleton, Shuelei wouldn't even have the chance to escape if the two were to fight again. This was the power of technology and the flourishing development of the archetype format theory. It was a bonus to individual combat power. A fleshly ability user like Shuelei lived in the worst era, but it was also the best era. The upper limits of traditional martial arts were unable to cross the barrier formed by technology. But the environment that nurtured ability users, as well as the development and growth of theories like the archetype format, allowed them to seamlessly connect with the most cutting-edge technology of today. This was the great framework of today's world. Only by entering it could one obtain the greatest bonus. Luo Nan didn't enter this framework, but he wouldn't deny that this path was correct. Shuelei's worries were uncalled for. Luo Nan himself couldn't avoid seeking inspiration from the archetype format. What qualifications did he have to obstruct Shuelei's path of advancement? Therefore, he didn't speak hypocritical and emotional words. Instead, he cut straight to the point. It seems that the deep blue walker is unavoidable. Does it not affect your previous cultivation? Shuelei let out a sigh of relief when he saw Luo Nan's reaction. He replied, "It's impossible to directly go and transform it. The gym master wants me to first observe and experiment. I want to treat the format of fire as a cultivation model to research. Therefore, I want to first discuss and compare notes with Brother God." Luo Nan nodded and raised his own suggestion. You can also use the burner simulator researched by the military and Quantum Corporation. They have it at Frost River Reality. If you need authority, you can just apply to the society. You can also report to the military. I'm afraid that they're looking forward to having a martial imparting expert like you as a guinea pig to provide experimental data. Luo Nan suddenly thought of Bai Xinyan as he spoke. It was this female doctor who used the burner simulator to reveal to him the unstoppable development of the archetype format. But according to authoritative intelligence, Bai Xinyan was the main culprit that caused all of the current troubles. Even Mr. Bai had solemnly apologized to him for this. Luo Nan had a general understanding of the reason why this father-daughter pair had a falling out. It was impossible to say that Luo Nan didn't hate her, but Luo Nan still wasn't used to the rhythm of changing identities between friend and foe. He wasn't used to it, but it didn't hinder his cognition. It also didn't bring him too much trouble. There was a photo frame that had just been placed there not too long ago. She giggled and said, "Look, the design on the photo might be a tradition of their Luo family." The photo Cat Eyes pointed to was the weird photo of his grandfather and father that Luo Nan had copied from his uncle this morning. No matter how tangled and complicated his heart was, Luo Nan still treasured this photo very much. He specifically found an electronic photo frame to place it in. However, he had not yet decided whether he should place it in his home or place it in the space of the dead tree with his mother's photo. He could only place it in the living room on the 4th floor of Gear. This was the place with the best lighting in Gear under sunny weather. Cat Eyes did not care about the tangled feelings in Luo Nan's heart. She seized the opportunity to urge him with all her might. "What do you mean by tradition? You pose according to the photo, I'll take a photo, and then we'll put it together. You don't even need to wait until the evening gathering. You'll be considered a member of the Luo family. As for whether you'll be a daughter or a child bride in the future, it's all a trifle." Cat Eyes revealed her intention to tease Luo Nan, but Rue Wen naturally did not respond. Cat Eyes teased Luo Nan several times to no avail, but she did not give up. Her eyeballs swiveled, and she called out to Luo Nan and the others. "Rue Wen says that the restoration of a single pose isn't enough. Someone with the surname Luo, come over here. Is it really okay for you to tamper with right and wrong in front of your own boss, a mental sensing expert?" But no matter what was said, Cat Eye's thoughts and actions were all for Rue Wen's good. If Luo Nan could help this little girl integrate a step further into this society, then Luo Nan really wouldn't mind making a few weird faces. So Luo Nan's ridicule was ridicule, but he did not refuse. He obediently walked over and revealed a smile to Rue Wen. "Then how about we pose together?" Rue Wen's clear and tranquil eyes streaked across his face. It was impossible to tell what she was leaning towards. But Cat Eyes tricked him again at this time. In the end, she did not let Shuelei go. "Why don't you guys go first and demonstrate once to dispel the child's nervousness? First your friend Luo Shui Pei, then your family member Luo Rue Pei. There's nothing wrong with that. Shuelei's temper did not care, but he was reminded by Cat Eyes' abbreviation. He suddenly had a strange thought. When we adopt her, will Ruiwen still be called Ruiwen? Will she be called Luo Ruiwen at that time, or will she follow Uncle Luo Nan's surname and be called Amo Ruiwen? Luo Nan discussed with him very seriously. The name is just a symbol, but those two are quite hard to pronounce. Cat Eyes sneered. Don't deliberately change the topic. Do you think I don't know what you guys are thinking? Go, stand in front of the photo frame. Split into two sides. Luo Nan on the left, Shuelei on the right. Pose properly. Shuelei grinned and looked at the photo again. His eyelids twitched. We agreed that it's a demonstration. No photos. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and go. Luo Nan and Shuelei were truly in a difficult situation. They glanced at each other, but they were helpless. They could only follow Cat Eyes' instructions and stand on the two sides of the electronic photo frame. They followed the poses of the two people in the photo frame and slightly staggered their angles. Then they continued to communicate with their eyes. You first. You first. Everyone together. Okay. That kind of pose only looked funny on the photo. If they really had to do it, and if they were to do it properly, it would be truly shameful. It would have been fine if Luo Nan and Shuelei did not exchange glances. But when their gazes met, they laughed until they staggered left and right a second later. There was no hope for any other pose. As their coach, Cat Eyes was extremely dissatisfied. She clapped hard. You two idiots. What happened to being role models? Luo Nan was waiting for these words. You're the coach. You're the role model. Why don't you come up and try? From Luo Nan's perspective, this was a sharp counterattack. But reality proved that he was still too young. Young. Cat Eyes' eyebrows shot up. No problem. As an outstanding dancer, Cat Eyes could unlock all sorts of poses at any time. She felt no pressure at all from a small comedy scene. Watch closely. Cat Eyes calmly took off her jacket, revealing a skin-tight protective suit. She stepped forward and pushed Shuelei aside, standing face to face with Luo Nan. Then she raised her left leg and hooked it backward. She raised her right hand up, assuming a reverse joint position. Her left arm extended backward, and her right knee bent inward. It was as if her entire body had been frozen in a high-speed rotation. This posture was awkward no matter how one looked at it. It was funny no matter how one looked at it. But Cat Eyes was an outstanding dancer. She used these elements to perfectly portray the flexible and graceful posture of a woman, especially since she was still wearing the skin-tight protective suit. Her undulating curves and soft waist made the two men in the room not know where to place their eyes. Luo Nan thought about how it was hard to avoid making a fool of himself, so he seized the last bit of time he had to tease Cat Eyes. Leister, where are you looking? Shuelei was innocently implicated, but the moment of crisis revealed his true colors. He directly responded, Sister Cat Eyes' posture isn't precise enough. Luo Nan looked at Cat Eyes. Cat Eyes' posture was restored to its original state, and she raised her eyebrows. Shuelei was right. She had indeed made some slight adjustments to her posture when she was imitating. After all, the sense of harmony and beauty of any plastic art was reflected in the details. Since Luo Nan had delivered himself to her doorstep, then he shouldn't blame her for being impolite. She giggled and retreated a few steps back. She prepared to find a good angle to take a picture of this rare scene. She had just chosen a position and gestured a bit. She could not help but laugh in spite of herself. Hey, Ruiwen. You really can't wait to enter the Luo family's door. She saw Ruiwen, who was beside her, actually cast off her usual indifference. She copied the pose in the photo, twisting her body and exerting force. She stretched her arms and legs. Her usual wooden expression contrasted beautifully with the two serious faces in the photo. The more she acted like this, the more adorable she became. Cat Eyes laughed out loud. She formed a circle with her index finger and thumb, and the synchronized virtual lens centered around Ruiwen. The three figures were encircled. She just needed to exert a bit of force with her fingertips, and the gesture response would be effective. She would record this rare scene. But at this moment, a low and deep sound wave permeated the room. The sound was like the rustling of rain falling on the eaves. It was dense like a tide crashing against the shore. For an instant, It was as if Cat Eyes was standing in the middle of a surging river. The sound of water filled her surroundings, and deep within, there was the sound of shrieking. Cat Eyes clearly wanted to exert force with her fingers, but they suddenly froze in this moment. It was hard to move an inch. Ouch! Luo Nen suddenly turned around, but he forgot his current position. He committed the lowest of mistakes. He sat solidly on the ground, ignoring the pain in his butt. He raised his head to look in astonishment. It was as if Cat Eyes had just woken up from a dream. She subconsciously exerted force with her fingers. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.